Right on, man. Hello, friends and gamers. So sitting here today, I have Cobra Wargaming, the man behind, well, the channel full of creative and interesting things. I was just telling him that among the YouTubers I wanted to talk to, he would make, well, at least the top 5 for board gaming YouTubers I'd like to talk with. So I'm really pleased to have him here today. It was a last minute thing. My kids finally went for a nap, and so it worked out really perfectly. So today we are discussing what to talk about, and we think what we'll talk about is some of Cobra Wargaming's custom expansions that he's created for, well, probably for a bunch of different board games, right? Not just Global War 36.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what custom expansions have you made?
All right. So for Global War, I would say that I think it began with looking at what historical board gaming hadn't been doing at the time.
Mm,
I think the first one that I decided to make was just about when V3 came out,
right.
and I noticed that Italy did not have a lot of expansions at the time. They
True.
still
True.
don't really, but basically, as a Italian, I definitely wanted a lot more Italian kind of features in the game, whether it
Oh
be
yeah.
like
Okay.
just minor units and stuff like that. So
Cool. Cool.
basically, the first expansion set I made for them was an Elite of the Empire kind of
Mm,
expansion, similar
mm,
to Germany and Japan. And it worked a lot like, I would say, America's minorities at war, where
right.
you would
Yeah.
basically, yeah, grab something out of a cup
Yeah.
and pull things out.
Hmm.
And so at the time, I had not even played Global War, so I was really going off of kind of what
Like
historical board
not
gaming
at
had done.
all.
No, I
Really?
was it was
Okay.
I think it was still like in the mail. I had ordered it and I'm like,
Oh
all
yeah.
right, for
Yeah.
the first game, yeah, I
But
want
but you'd
something.
had no experience with version 2. It was just version 3.
Nope.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I although yeah, with version 2 though, I had watched all of General Hand Grenade's
Yeah.
videos on that. That's what really got me into it. I could
Hmm.
probably have like sat down and played version 2
Cool.
perfectly.
Nice.
But yeah, I saw V3's coming out and he made a video a long time ago. He's like, don't get V version 2, version 3 is coming out soon.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I ended
Yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, but that expansion set kind of the success of it in my first game definitely showed me that like I'm not I was kind of afraid that, oh, this might be like overpowered or
Mm.
and put too much of a sway on it, and but after seeing it I didn't have to make too many modifications.
Hmm.
I thought it was like an overall success, and I liked the I'm always like a fan of formatting. Like even though I can't release them as like expansions I can sell, I
Mm.
um I made them look all pretty and stuff to
Right.
print
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
to hand
Mm.
out to players. Made my own custom little roundels,
Nice.
so that was very cool. And then
That's really cool.
yeah,
So a few questions here about that. So, are people able to access your custom designs? Like, where do you have that available for your custom expansions?
yeah. So as of the moment, all of my custom expansions are available on the Axis and Allies Facebook page.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's one of the largest Axis and Allies communities out there.
Mm.
Although
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely wanted to, especially in the last year, wanted to invest in trying to get some friends together to make a website for kind of my channel related content,
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
have so much custom content that I
Right.
want
Yeah.
people to see. And I
Right.
know Facebook isn't the go-to for many people, so having
That's true.
a separate website would be pretty nice.
That's true. So you just sparked an idea in my head. Is like I've been toying around because a lot of people probably do have expansions. You know what would be interesting is if we had, I don't know how Discord works exactly, but say theoretically I made a Discord page, call it whatever, and then you would be a moderator for your, sub channel in that Discord. And you could lock it down so nobody comments, or you can make a separate one there too, and you could put all your custom stuff on there. And so maybe eventually you could acquire all these people who are interested in Global War 36 and also interested in playing around with the custom designs, and we could have them, that way be a way for people to access it for my stuff, your stuff, and whoever else wants to throw their stuff on there. And it'd be a website for everybody. I know it's not the right thing, and maybe there's other things that would work better than Discord, but it's an option, right, of something to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've kind of played
Right.
around with
Okay.
because it's a pretty easy
Mm-hmm.
thing to implement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Because Facebook groups don't let you post up. I mean, they let you post up stuff, but then it disappears in the news feed,
Well,
right? So.
um, Yes, but with Facebook pages, I'm not sure if maybe some pages have different settings because the one that exists right now is there's actually a file page where
Oh
people
yeah,
can post their
cool.
files.
Okay, that works out good.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so mm,
And even I guess on Board Game Geek, you also could upload files as well too. But that works out really good on that Facebook page. If that would work out quite nice. Yeah, cool. I was gonna add something. So accessibility formatting to make it look nice. So your roundels, they're just images essentially, or did you go ahead and print like acrylic round? Like, did you get them custom made too, or for
yeah,
your own private
basically,
use?
yeah, what I had ended up doing was I basically printed out on a piece of paper the artwork that I designed
Hmm.
for each roundel, and then I would then glue them to wooden kind of
Right.
three-quarter. They're the same as historical board gaming. So
Cool.
I got them
Nice. Yeah.
laser cut, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool. So that's really neat that you just customize your own thing. And I think formatting is huge. I think people, when they see a nice formatted kind of custom page, they see that you put a lot of thought into it and it automatically gains some credibility. So that's really cool that you've done that. So before version 3, did you have any online, much YouTube presence beforehand at all or not?
no, I would say that my YouTubing kind of kicked off with I think a little bit before version 3, but it was heavily
Mm,
related. Basically, my
okay.
original kind of videos revolved around I think it was called like it was like building up for for V3 where I would
Oh,
just kind of
okay.
show off the
Okay. Yeah.
pieces that I was getting from historical board games.
Right. Yeah. 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 I see. Yeah. So it has from the very start been orientated around Global War 36. That's really good
Yeah.
because that was how many years ago when you started your channel?
That must have been around I would say 5 years now,
Okay.
maybe
So
6.
a while then, hey? Yeah, that's not too
Yeah.
bad. That's not too bad. Yeah, cool, cool. I like some of the videos you make. I mean, I like a lot of the videos you make, but I find some of them are really creatively interesting. Like the one where you did like this week in gaming. I thought those are really cool. I thought that that's actually one of my inspirations for doing this stuff is like, man, that's like if you could have like a news anchor talking about what's happening in this, that's really cool. So
Yeah.
that's what inspired this is like you'd have different people that talk on in your little show. That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely realized in the Axis and Allies community, like especially on YouTube, that it started off. I remember General Hand Grenade was like the first one that really made these slightly more structured videos,
Mm-hmm.
and had some lighting stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and then as of recently, I've definitely started to see stuff like you have a couple of my videos. I remember that I've really put some time into like how to buy Global War 36. I
Yeah. Yeah.
spent a while writing a script for that and editing. But then you've got people like you with videos like this, and even the ones where you talk about things to implement, and then stuff like um, Panzer King with his
Yeah.
very movie-like cinematic
That's right.
video
Yeah.
recording
Yeah.
style.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. So I've actually looked at your channel recently too, and that one about how to buy Global War version 3, that has you a lot of likes and views, like above average for the rest of the stuff. So you hit like some sort of magical formula that people are interested in, right? And so that's really good. So if that's what a person's pursuing, you did a really great job in that one. And you can tell.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that's a combination of scripting and editing, but it really caught people's interest on how to do that. So yeah, that's really neat. Now, in regards to Panzer King, so he has a lot of experience in. Well, sorry, let me back up a bit. Panzer King has two channels. One is related to Global War 36, and another one is related to his professional career. And that one, I think, if I remember correctly, he said he has like 5,000 subscribers, and he started it much later than Global War 36. So it's interesting how that works. But he's experienced in making videos, or at least does a lot of research and finds the optimal way. Like, my impression of him is he doesn't mess around too much with his free time. Like he's productive with his free time, and so he's really good at he's got a magnificent board set up and a very well done system. And even watching him do videos, they he does them on the fly. Like he'll stand in the corner of the room on his phone and whip it together in like 5 minutes or something like that, maybe 10 minutes on his phone, and he just has it out in no time. It's crazy. So he
yeah,
has a lot of the know-how and that intellectual capability of learning new things quickly. So it's good. Yeah.
yep, yeah,
Yeah. That's neat. Well, that's awesome. So 5 years at it, and that's not too bad considering the length of time other people have been at this game. So that's really cool. At this YouTube thing, that's really neat. Yeah, right on. So tell me a little bit about the. So you said you have Italian heritage, I assume, because you said they don't have much expansion. That's cool, neat. So is
Yeah.
that what other expansions have you made?
All right. So the next one I ended up making was called, I think, Triumph of Fascism, Bring in the
Okay.
Heavies, and that
Oh yeah.
that one was a heavies expansion, kind of like the America ones, only for Italy again.
Okay.
Um, and so that was because I was getting a bit into 3D designing stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was taking a CAD
Oh,
class in high school, but
okay.
I ended up researching and also kind of putting together some of these like heavy Italian units, some
Mm.
historical, some kind of implied out
Mm-hmm.
of my own imagination.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I designed all those, and so that one was I think a lot of people really found interest in that one because
Mm.
of the fact that it was these new cool units that were
Sure.
added to the
Totally.
game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but it was definitely limited by the fact that I couldn't kind of give out these units because of, again, historical board gaming's content. Global war is kind of a copyrighted thing. So I definitely considered a few times talking to them about that, maybe giving them the files and them actually introducing it.
Mm.
So but then since then, I think I misplaced the drive
Oh
with the files
no.
on it. So
I
I'll have
see.
to look around my house sometime
Okay.
for those things. But
Ah.
yeah, that expansion was probably, I liked it in concept, and I've played it in multiple games, but it never really got implemented.
Mm.
Like the biggest issue with Italy was the fact that they can never really, even if you're really trying to be kind of a funny Italian player and buy something,
Yeah.
some mega tank that kind of
Yeah.
megalomania,
That's right.
they
Yeah.
really just, yeah, they really just don't have the cash on hand to be able to spend on stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I definitely think that stuff like the elites expansion was kind of cool because it's these really small units that aren't going to throw the game, but they
Mm-hmm.
definitely give Italy something cool to play with.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm. So is that something where people can choose off of a list of what to buy?
yeah. So
Okay.
basically, how that one worked was it was like I think different units had different requirements. So like there's
Okay.
this really heavy tank. You would have needed to get heavy tank technology
Mm-hmm.
and advanced artillery. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was probably the biggest limiter because Italy maybe one tech if they're lucky by the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about tech should be done differently. Now, this might be like off on a little side trail, and I could be mixing up different board games, but I think in 1939 that HBG did, they had a point accumulation system. So you roll a dice each turn, and on whatever result that is you're working towards that goal. So say for heavy tanks, you need 30 points of tech, and so each turn you roll and you add that to that value. So you can have really bad rolls, but you're still making progress. And the idea there, like again, I don't know if 39 did that or not. I feel like they did, but I'm not sure. But the idea there is like that Thomas Edison idea of like you figured out a way not to make a light bulb, right? And so that's some scientific progress as well. You figured out a way not to make a nuclear bomb, and you're still making progress in that regards. Even if you roll a one, it's still one step towards the goal. Because I've had a few games where I've just been hampered by tech, and it's like roll turn after turn after turn since the start of the game, and I don't get the damn tech whatsoever throughout the length of the game. And so that seems a little ahistoric, right? You know, when it's something that was quite evident in World War II, and yet you still don't get it. So I think they should move back to the point accumulation system, or they do something like if you miss every time you miss a die roll and miss that tech, then second time around you get a die roll, but you get a +1 on each die roll, and that way you kind of get it eventually if you roll enough times. So there's different
yeah,
ways of doing that, and then once you get it to that next level, then it resets and your missed die roll reverts back to zero. So yeah, that's really cool. I like that system. So the downside of this is, like you say, Italy doesn't have much income to spend on. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Mm.
And like another thing I was thinking with tech is like at least some kind of collaboration between powers because just looking to like history,
Mm.
the Germans developed jet fighters, and through collaboration, the Italians were actually able to
Sure.
get a
Yeah.
working jet fighter out before the Germans. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, of course, they didn't have the money to actually in
That's
real
right. Yeah.
life invest in
That's right.
in
Yeah.
further designing those. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and then same with heavy tanks. They once the
Mm.
Germans started pumping out tigers. The Italians tried their hand at some heavy tanks, but of
Mm-hmm.
course capitulated before that
That's
ever
right.
took
Yeah,
off.
yeah, that's right. Well, you'd think too, like at some point you just capture a broken down Soviet tank, rip it apart, reverse engineer. It's like, well, we didn't have to do any research. We just ripped it apart and designed whatever, right? Like you get the concept. There's different ways of technology spreading without scientists or engineers in a lab. Sometimes it's just simply reverse engineering, and that can be done pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think tech should be reworked in a different way, and there should be some yeah there should be some other way of doing things. I think maybe if you do this point accumulation system, you could say you could lend lease a tech roll to people as well. And so instead of a dice 12 that you would roll for yourself and accumulate those points, maybe if the person you're lending that tech to and they have less points than you, then you can lend lease them a dice 6. And so on their turn, they're rolling a dice 12 for their own self, but also they got the dice 6 or dice 6-sided dice from the German guy, and so now they're also bumping themselves up a little bit. Something like that. There's
Yeah.
ways around it for sure. That's cool. So, I want to hear a little bit about any World War. Unless you, what other? What, I want to hear a bit more about your World War One stuff that you're designing. But also, if you have any other interesting things about, these are all interesting, these ones that you said, but what other highlights of custom games have you, sorry, custom expansions have you made?
So I think one of my favorites was called Arctic Warfare, and
Okay,
that that one basically brought kind of like Greenland, Iceland,
cool.
and parts of Canada into the game a lot more.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, that one it basically put like a bit of like a mini game into the northern theater
Hmm,
where
cool.
Germany's trying to invest in weather bases that give them slight little bonuses while the allies are trying to knock those out
I
and
like that.
capture those territories.
I like that
Yeah,
quite a bit. Yeah.
yep.
So, bonuses to what? What do the Germans get for bonus? Just out of curiosity, I'm really intrigued in this one. I wouldn't mind looking it up.
Yeah, this one I think it was that if the Germans had two or more weather stations, they had a +1 IPP because of weather information just for the civilian front. You'd be able
Cool.
to plan
Yeah.
infrastructure better.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I think it was if they had three weather bases, that one was it gave them a +1 in attack first round of combat in the naval theater,
Okay.
basically
Okay.
being able to plan around the weather. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and there was some little bonuses like Franz Joseph Land and Svalbard, which are off map. They're up at the
Sure.
North
Yeah.
Pole,
Yeah.
and so if Germany can capture, like say Norway and control all of Norway, they can then receive one free weather-based bonus
Hmm.
representing those ones up north.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that quite a bit. I'm surprised you didn't say anything about convoy rating.
Oh yeah, I think that it might. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I think that it may have given submarines a +1 to convoy
Cool.
rating, but
Nice.
yeah, I can't say for sure. I haven't looked at that
Yeah.
one in a while now.
That's an interesting one. I'd like to look into that one because I think for me, expansions are broken down into at least two different categories. There could be more. But there's one category that adds flavor, and usually those are from units and such. There's, we could call it another category that adds flavor, but not through units, but through kind of events and things that occur. So, for instance, I was just looking at today what's it called? The new Berlin. It's like if Berlin falls, then Germany starts anew in Argentina. And so that one doesn't, it adds a couple of units, but it adds more of a concept or it extends the game, makes it a little bit more interesting. That one's a bit broken because it costs you $15 to do this feature, and it's like $15 or buy 5 infantry to help defend Berlin to prevent it from falling, right? So, or a
Yeah.
fortification or something like that. But so sorry, back to what I was getting before. This Arctic warfare one I like because it doesn't just impact the Germans; it impacts the Allies. They're preventing them from going this. And I was gonna do a video with Wintermute talking about our favorite expansions, and I bet you we're gonna have the same ones because they're all expansions that don't just impact one player; they impact at least two different alliances. They impact the Germans and the Allies and the Axis, or the Comintern and the Axis, or something like that. And so this one I like because it does that. It does that, and it also, like you said, makes a little bit of a mini game, and I think that's really cool. I like that feature. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely say that with expansion sets, what I like to see is like some of my favorite ones show it where they're not super complex to implement. Like I
Yeah,
would point to something like partisans, as there's just so many die rolls when you get
yeah,
into like I like the concept and I really want to play it. It's just that
mm,
all these die rolls to generate partisans, and they block certain things. You have to make
yeah,
sure you can see that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So and then yeah, looking at things like say the elite of the Reich or minorities at war, they're just
Mm.
easier to implement, and having these cool elite units kind of adds to the game.
That's
Yeah.
true. The only I agree with you 100%. Except I find that Elite of the Reich. I'm not crazy about Elite of the Reich or the Allies, one of the common turn equivalent, because I find at least in the one that I played with the Axis, is like you have to watch for certain features in the game. Is like when you have a heavy tank in, I'm just making stuff up, but in Lithuania, then this is what occurs. And it's like, well, I don't want to have to read a sheet every single turn and refresh my memory with all this kind of stuff. So I think that's the only stumbling block for me. But I think if HBG did like analysis of all the popular expansions, they would see it's these ones like Elite of the Reich, and you kind of have to have Elite of the Reich plus the Comintern one plus the British one or something like that. Like it's hard to keep balanced. How do you, if somebody says, I want to play with the Italian Elite one, how do you keep that game balanced for everybody else? Does everybody get their own Elite now? And does that keep things balanced or not? Because, there's three Axis players, two Allied players usually, and a Comintern. So does that keep it balanced or not, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something to point. And I was going to point that out with the Elite of the Reich. That's I think I have just about every expansion set, and I think that was
No
one
way.
of the
Cool.
reasons I didn't invest in that, because I was like, unless I figure out something, I can't see me
Yeah.
or like a new German player like
Right.
looking
Yeah.
through this chart.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
true. The partisan stuff too is like so. The more dice rolls you do, the less. Well, it slows down the game quite a bit too. So yeah, you're absolutely right in that regards. I've been thinking about that one as maybe you roll per instead of per territory, you roll kind of per region, like Southern Europe, Ukraine, or lower part of Russia or something like that, and you roll kind of at a larger level, and then maybe you roll combine two dice and say, well, you get the idea. There's different ways of doing things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, cool. No,
yeah.
that's interesting. So tell me a little bit about the stuff you put for World War One. That's my favorite period in history, so I would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, that's also my favorite, and
Is it? Cool.
especially yeah, especially with the amount of research that went into
Hmm.
making my own World War I game.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
learned a lot from
Oh,
that
yeah.
period. Uh, so that all started, I think, with there was a channel called uh, what was it? The it was something that had to do with the lion. I forget now, but
Oh, I'm familiar.
yeah, I'll have to look that up. But basically, he had made this custom map, basically an expansion to the
Hmm.
original 1914 map.
Right, right.
Um, and it and then he ended up making a larger, just kind of global scale map. But of
Yeah.
course,
Okay.
it
I
was
feel like I've seen
smaller.
that one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Um, yeah. So basically, from there, I think I had found the Facebook page that then got me that file, and I was looking
Mm.
at it, and there was a few things that I thought I could maybe make a little bit better. Like I wanted a few more territories here and there to add some
Right.
diversity
Yeah.
to the strategy. And from there, I think I started on my like first version where I pretty much started from scrap. It definitely had the same art style because I was
Mm.
using the same program as him,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it definitely took off in terms of lots more territories, new nations, and like different also mainly tons of new units. The original
Right.
1914 out of box units, infantry, artillery,
Right.
tank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a lot of diversity.
Yeah.
Um, yep. So, and then in researching and finding out more and more about World War I, I was able to add. I was just having a discussion with somebody on in the Axis and Allies community, and then talking about. I think I went for a more what I called arcade and
Mm.
fun board game than as a very historical one,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
I would describe maybe like Global 36 kind of like, where it is definitely like fun, but it's more of, hey guys, want to play a World War II game, and got the Axis and Allies and Comintern, um, and stuff like Germany maybe investing in a World War II colonial empire is going to not bring them anywhere in the game.
Yeah.
Whereas in mine, like in my World War I game, Germany, say, has a little bit more infantry in their Pacific colonies, so that
Okay.
if they want to try to make a landing in like a small landing in Australia, they could. They'd probably get
Mm.
beaten back, but they have the option to try
Mm-hmm.
a little
Mm-hmm.
something different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, we definitely saw that in the last game we played of that my group where um, I guess it kind of did lead to the German downfall, but I tried investing in Germany having this strong colonial empire and
Mm-hmm.
building all these commerce raiders and yeah, so and also it was kind of fun in the sense of like building a bunch of commerce raiders and then raiding the Caribbean, just kind of like these
Cool.
fun
Yeah.
little like Pirates of
Yeah.
the Caribbean type
That's
stuff.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So a few
Yep.
questions on that. So just to clarify, you're saying that your World War One game that you designed is more arcade-like. You said, right? It's not like so much of a historical simulation focus like Global War 36 is. Is that accurate, or were you saying that Global War 36 is a bit arcade-like as
I
well?
would say that it definitely has a bit, especially when you add expansions, not even like the wackier ones, just stuff like diplomacy. It
Right.
doesn't change the historical aspect too much, but it
Right.
definitely adds some more like variation with like
Right. Right.
say Sweden going to Russia and
Sure,
stuff like
sure.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're trying to
But
create a game
yeah.
that was similar in spirit, I guess, to Global War 36, right? Is that roughly yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't quite understand the connection between Global War 36. That's really cool. So, what's your start date for your World War One game?
In terms of when it
Like,
starts, it like 1914 like kicks off.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. So
And you're
it
still
definitely does.
capable, even despite that start date, to still build up a Caribbean raider fleet and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, that it definitely kind of takes place on the side. So like in that
Okay.
game, Germany has the special ability to construct commerce raiders, which represents them kind of
Mm-hmm.
outfitting ocean liners.
Sure,
They're
that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yep. So it allows for those little things
Mm.
out in the midst while there's still the major kind of fight going on in Europe.
Oh, so do they have to build the commerce raiders in Germany? Or sorry, are they forced to build it in Germany, or can they outfit these commerce raiders in the Caribbean type of deal?
Yeah, they can
Oh,
basically ports that they have across the world.
cool.
You can build. I think it's one per turn at a fort. I mean, at a port, and
Nice. Yeah,
yeah, and they're
that's
pretty
really
weak
cool.
units, but
Yeah.
yeah, they definitely. Uh, it definitely. I think what I tried to do with that is to make German ports more important to the Allies
That's
because a
right.
lot of
Yeah.
them are, yeah, a lot of them are on low IPC islands that the Allies didn't really want to take. But with a port, Germany could start
Totally.
building these liners.
Totally,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and that's very important too because that was the biggest effort that the British were making initially was to like negate the German Empire abroad, prevent stuff from happening. Because yeah, and that's a good mechanic of doing things too, just to make it so that you can build a threat anywhere in the globe. So good system. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I'd love to talk about that more, but I don't know if we should linger on that too much. I had one idea for Global War 1914. If a person doesn't want to start way back when, what about if you had a system set up where you have battle plans, right? So you can have. So one of my favorite video games that deals with World War One is shoot To End All Wars. It's called. It's no longer in production and it's super clunky and horrible. But one thing I really liked about that was at the start of the game, but it's a video game, right? But at the start of the game, you can play with other players too. You choose a battle plan, and so you can be as the Germans, you want the Schlieffen plan, or you can be the Ruprecht plan or the Moltke plan, right? And these different plans would you would have a different setup chart for each one. And so the Moltke plan would be like a more focused all out against Russia with minimal forces on the East Front. And this is based in history as well. And then the French would have plan number 14, plan number 16, and plan number 9, and a different thing like offensive push from, where's Lorraine kind of area there, offensive push there, or defensive stance around Belgium, and that kind of system. And I thought that was really, really fun and really cool of way of implementing that. If a person doesn't want to go from all the way back in 1910 and do like a pre-war kind of thing, you can have these different setup charts. And it's all secret too. So you select yours, and once everybody's selected, you just reveal it. And okay, well, I'm going to be screwed now because my plan is completely opposite from what the other guy is doing, and I'm going to be dead in the water or whatever, right? So yeah,
yeah. I've never actually considered something like that, and that's actually a really cool idea. Like,
I thought so too. Yeah,
Yeah,
Like, for instance, you'd
yeah,
have the Russians focusing on Austria. They'd choose that battle plan because they're like, oh yeah, they're going to do this Schlieffen plan. We don't need to worry about it. But turns out the Germans actually chose the Moltke plan, which is an all-out attack against Russia. So it's like, well, so it's pretty cool. I really like that system. And it creates uniqueness for every game that you play. They don't get into the problem with Axis and Allies where it's like, well, obviously, the first thing you do is you do this, this, and this. And if you don't do that, you're kind of crazy, right? So I like
yeah,
that variability between different plays. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and yeah, definitely. That's probably something I'll have to consider with mine because I do think mine does have a decent amount of you can you have a little bit of decision. Like I guess if
Mm-hmm.
Germany decided to take a slightly more defensive stance against France because they're not ready for an all-out assault turn one,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that would definitely work. But I definitely like that idea because I think of it kind of like why I like Global War 36 because with Global 1940, like the out of box version, I would always like tell my friends like, you know, beginning of the game, it really, and many people pointed out, it kind of plays out the same because,
Yeah,
as the German player, you didn't plan for war. History did, and so Germany doesn't have a fleet because they didn't
that's
want
right. Yeah.
that. They have a lot of like tanks. Maybe you wanted a mass infantry, but you can't because
Mm-hmm.
the guys in the 1930s planned it out like this. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
36 gives you the ability to say like, I'm going to do this or that, and
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, and that leads me to another thought that I thought I'd share with you. I really like War Plan Z. I think that's a cool expansion, but it's never going to be played because anytime the German player is like, "I'd like to play with War Plan Z," guess what? The British player is going to be, well, gearing up for, right? So it's like you almost have to have War Plan Z every single time you play the game, and then that way. If you play it with every single game, you don't know as a British player if he's going to actually do War Plan Z. It's available to him, but you don't know what he's going to do, right? So I think it'd be cool if you had like a retrospective expansions kind of thing that at a certain point, say you choose even almost like a secret expansion for some expansion. I know it wouldn't work for everything, but if you had a certain type of expansion called operations expansion, I'll tell you at the start, you need to allocate $20 for this expansion. And so you get the $20 and it's secret. I mean, everybody knows you put $20 aside, but they don't know which plan you bought. They don't know if it's like a big tank push or if it's War Plan Z. And then once it hits a certain date, it'll be like, bam, you suddenly put those units that are incorporated into your plan and they show up on the board at a specific date. So it doesn't give a clue to the enemy. Now, the problem there is certain things are going to be, like, there'll be spies and reports, and the British newspapers will be like, oh, there's an extra, our washed up fishermen will say, like, yeah, the Germans are building a lot of ships. So there should be some clue as to what direction you're going to, but, I don't know exactly how to do that. But there's different ways. Like maybe some person will roll a dice each turn, and then if they succeed on this number or less, then they get to look at what plan you chose, or something like that to represent that espionage level of things, right? So that'd be cool.
yeah, and I do remember. I think like a simple way of kind of implementing that was Sired Blood. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I've heard of him. Yeah, I
Um,
don't know much about what he's all about, but I've heard the name many a time.
yeah, and so with his custom Global 40 game, they
Hmm.
have secret tech, which I really like because
Is that
everybody.
is that the BBR game?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah. So I know who you're talking about. Yeah, Secret Tech.
yeah,
So
but
sorry, but go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah. So everybody, chooses their tech secretly, and then I can't. I think that you have to pay if when
Hmm.
you pay for your turn, it's guaranteed that it moves up, and then it
Hmm.
keeps moving up until I think the fourth turn,
Hmm.
where if you had been paying every turn, you then reveal it. And
Hmm.
in a game that's more simple like 1940, you can it like something like a technology has a pretty big effect. So
That's right.
there's
Yeah.
been games that I really liked when I was watching it back in the day where Britain maybe went for radar because they think Germany's going to
Sure.
do
Yeah.
a big fighter push, but then
Yeah.
Germany had invested in advanced artillery and they have tons of artillery on the board
Right.
now.
Right.
Like yeah,
Cool.
so
Yeah, that's really neat. I like that. I've never played BBR or watched it too much just because there's so much other things to watch and do. But yeah, that's really a cool concept. I should look into them because they have some pretty cool ideas. So you were talking before about the guy that designed the map based upon Axis Allies 1914, and you said you have the same design program. Could you tell me which one that is?
it was just Paint 3D, so
Right.
Microsoft.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
very, very, very simple. I
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
have a lot of. I mean, looking at the map, I definitely see like how was I able to make this
Right.
because,
Yeah.
um, uh, especially in the modern time of making it, and I had recently last year been working on a Roman Empire era
Mm-hmm.
map, and I was using this map making software called GIMP,
Yeah.
and I was
I
able to
use GIMP. Yeah.
yeah, and I was able to get like such a it just looked beautiful and also just it was more advanced of a program so I could say go back.
Mm-hmm.
If I say with my World War One map, if I wrote all the names down and then realized wait the terrain needs to be different, I
Mm-hmm.
have to erase all those
Yeah.
names and
Yeah.
then redo yeah, it's not
Yeah.
layered. So
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
you're the John that lost all his work.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah. I read that the
Yeah.
other day. I was like, shoot, that absolutely sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to
Yeah.
mention that. The good thing is that seeing like the bright side of it, a lot of members in the community were able to get me most of my work back.
Nice. That's
So,
really good. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
was really glad about
just
that.
state the case for the viewers in case they're not familiar with the story.
Yeah. So basically, I think it was about a month ago that the computer that I had saved all of my work on, which included my World War One game, my Roman Empire game, all of that, basically the I think it was the memory got corrupted and it had to be replaced. So there was no way to really recover any of it because it had
Mm-hmm.
just
Right.
kind of snapped and
Yeah.
stopped working.
Ah.
So yeah, it was a
Yeah.
really big hit
Oh, I
considering
bet. Yeah.
yeah, all the stuff I had on that. But
Like
I
the
think
hours of work you put into it, not
yeah,
like crazy.
that that was I think between the hours, especially with stuff like the Roman Empire map, which was like I just kind of gotten it to completion, and I had
Mm,
all and also in terms of the investment, the Roman
mm,
Empire's map, I was like, oh, it's gonna be done soon. Maybe next time I go home, I can print it out and play it
mm,
with my
mm.
group. And I had invested in all of these pieces for the game too, and I
Ah,
have those pieces, and you know
yeah,
I'm in the midst of painting them, and
yeah,
now I'm gonna have to wait on
yeah,
that for a
yeah.
while.
Ouch.
Yeah,
But did you get back? So you said you got sufficient of it back, but did you get enough to like fairly up to date or
yeah. So with
like
the Roman, yeah, the ancient kind of map is that was sadly gone,
gone?
so that's gonna have to be redone. The World War One game, I'm glad that I have my original files for that back, but I
Mm,
was working on a kind of final
mm,
version,
mm.
which but the good thing with that lost file was I was probably about maybe 2 hours tops into that project, so
Okay,
there
yeah.
wasn't a lot lost on that, and I can also kind of yeah
So another thought too is like it's not just that you lost the image itself, it's like you lost the layers. You know, that GIMP puts it all in layers. It's like you said, the labels, the terrain, the graphical features behind it. Like people on Facebook might have your kind of more or less finished product, but it's kind of on flat. It's all combined into one compressed into one layer, whereas you had it all series up. So you've lost a lot of that modability capacity now, and now to change that, you have to go right down from the beginning and relayer it up, which is you know, I've recently hired an artist to work on a game that I'm making because I'm very technologically well, you know, I'm not very good at it. I have GIMP and I've played around with it. I just don't have the time to like invest into it, right? So I've found somebody on Fiverr to help put something together, but you know, they don't understand board games that much, so they just slap it together and it's I mean, this guy's experienced, right? So he's not just slapping it together. But man, I wish I should really learn how to use GIMP properly to actually make a proper thing.
yeah, and that was actually I definitely don't suggest it, but that was the funny thing with that ancient empires map was that I had never used GIMP, and I was
Oh,
actually watching a tutorial
hmm,
on how to make a Dungeons and Dragons map. That was basically my inspiration.
hmm,
And so as I'm watching the tutorial, you know, he's making this a little field basically,
hmm.
like a little medieval map, whereas I'm
Right.
doing it on the scale
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Mediterranean. And I'm
Right,
like,
yeah.
yeah, just going through all that, and it's
Yeah.
like as I'm learning, I'm also making this board game, which
Yeah,
was
yeah.
a lot of
Yeah. Oh, sure.
a lot
Yeah,
of
totally.
thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. Wow, wow. That's crazy. Well, that's sad that you lost it all, but I suppose you can kind of approach it with the fresh eyes and see this as like a second edition and maybe using ideas of the previous past, just try to build up from there, perhaps, hopefully.
yeah, that's definitely how I see it. And then
Mhm.
also, um, I am also treating it as I think a break from, I think especially with my World War One game,
Hmm.
since I started working on that 4 years ago, there's been, I think the one that I released recently, or like about a year ago, was version 5. And
Hmm.
so it was constantly being redone. I would see it, not really be happy with it,
Right,
do it
right.
again. Um,
Hmm.
and so basically, like, I think I'm taking this as a break to stop looking at some of the games I was making like that. So maybe
Hmm.
try some smaller theater games. I've really wanted to make a North African theater
Cool.
game for a
Nice. Yeah.
while. So
Yeah.
some smaller project like that might be a better
Yeah.
investment.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. No, there's a lot of games about North Africa though, but I'm sure, if a person approaches it with fresh eyes and new unique concept behind it, I think it'd be really cool. Like World War II North Africa, obviously, right? Is that what you're thinking? Cool. Yeah, yeah. Nice, nice. No, that's really neat. I was looking at one game called Blocks of Africa. I seen it on Doug's shelf when I went down to Tulsa. Have you ever heard of it? It was made by Italian. No, look into it. Blocks
Uh,
of Africa. They have blocks of Europe as well, and you can combine them into making this thing. And the idea there is it's kind of I don't know what you call it, hidden placement where your blocks are facing you and your opponents are facing them. And it's neat because you can kind of rotate to like reduce their strength, right? Because they'll have like a strength value of 6 and then you rotate it, now it's a 4-3, and you can use specific resources to bump them up. So for instance, if you knock down a tank 2 points, you can use 2 iron and it'll bump them up a little bit, right? Or two, food or whatever you want to call it, right? So look into it because it's all in Italian and I can't read it. And with your Italian heritage, sorry, it's not all in Italian, but the forums and everything like that, since it's originated from an Italian producer, so a lot of the stuff is Italian. Yeah,
yeah, speaking of like Italian board games, there's
yeah.
this one that I think it was 3 months ago I learned about. It's called Universalis, something like that. It's basically a massive map of Europe during the medieval times,
Oh yeah. Okay.
uh, and I think it's a pretty decent price for like what you get with the game. Lots of
Hmm.
cool sculpts and everything, but everything is in Italian or it's translated
Oh
kind
no.
of in. So I've I spent like about a month kind of deciphering it and being like,
Oh,
okay, I think I have
yeah.
it down
That's
now.
funny.
Yeah.
Right on, yeah. Well, that's really cool that you've been working on all this stuff. That's really neat. I'm sad to hear that you lost a lot of your stuff, but yeah, hopefully it all comes back eventually and comes back in a better format than it did before. So
Yeah.
another thought with your expansions, and like a lot of people, it'd be neat if you could either sell the idea or have HBG kind of take your idea, brush it off, polish it up, and then because I have the Canada War expansion through HBG, and I mean I didn't get. I mean, sorry, the monetary compensation for designing stuff is there's not much monetary compensation, if any. It's a labor of love. So I'm sure if you talk to HBG, they might even endorse your product. Like they'll check through it, endorse your product, and put it on their website and make it more widely available to the community. You should send them an email
Yeah.
maybe and see what they have to say.
Yeah. I've definitely thought about getting that out there at least. I think
Mm-hmm.
I did email them a while ago
Right.
about
Yeah.
some ideas with a random events deck
Oh yeah. Okay.
mentioned
Cool.
for 36, and
Mm-hmm.
that one didn't seem, that one was definitely like not really finished. It was like,
Mm.
here's some ideas for this. I've heard some people saying they want it, but with the things I've, especially when I find those 3D files for the Italian heavies,
Yeah.
plus plus some like especially like the fact with like the elites expansion, I have all the artwork for stuff like roundels,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that would pick up a lot more with them than the something like a random event, a half
Yeah.
finished random
Yeah. Yeah.
event list.
Yeah.
Although one thing I did see on the Facebook page was that there was somebody actually working with them on an Italian elite expansion, but
Okay.
it ended up falling through and they didn't
Mm.
pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, looking at that, it definitely, in my mind, lacked a little bit of diversity. I think all
Right.
of
Yeah.
it's like assigning just SS units to the Germans. They were all
Right.
just like, this just bumps your infantry up,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah. Yeah.
mine
Yeah.
had a little bit more features and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think also from my younger years of making these expansion sets, I've gotten over like, like I don't really care about money. I just want, I like, I
Sure.
make these sets to show to people, and then they're like, wow, I love this set, and it's got a
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
cool
Yeah.
gameplay, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'd
Yeah.
be fun
Yeah.
seeing that.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. No, it's all about enjoyment of the game for you. It's not that you're going to be compensated one way or another, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but that it's cool if you are, just even 20 bucks or whatever, right? It'd be okay. No, that's neat. That's neat, especially if you can combine your well, not combine your ideas. By putting it out there, it's more widely available, and people will give you suggestions later on, and it can always improve and become better. I want to talk about expansions a little bit more too. So one thing with expansions, I feel, is that they there's different kinds of expansions like we were talking about, and so well, yeah, let's talk about some other stuff that you created. Sorry, I was starting to go down one direction. I decided to bring it back here because it would, yeah.
So,
Or sorry, what other things would you like to talk about?
I mean, expand some other expansions would be I'd be
Yeah.
all right to talk about that because
Okay.
I
All right.
definitely have a few more that were pretty notable. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think one that was uh, I really liked, but it never really got a ton of notability was it. It was from another person on the Facebook page that made it was called Sweden Finland at
Hmm.
War, and it was
Hmm.
basically a if Sweden and Finland had kind of joined in a
Oh.
confederation,
Yeah.
and it allowed you to play as that nation.
Cool.
And so I really liked that. I ended up taking his stuff. I kind of rebalanced it and formatted it as if it was like an HVG like chart.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so I never played it. He did. He really liked it. But like I said, it was pretty difficult to implement in the fact
Sure.
that you're going to need, a whole nother nation worth of pieces. And especially for me, where I mean, as you may know, I paint all of my
Yeah.
nations realistically. So
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
just I was like, I really want to play this, but I gotta buy and paint a whole
Yeah,
new
yeah.
army.
It's such an
Yeah,
investment, yeah. Especially
yeah,
if you're buying every expansion that HBD comes up with. That's crazy.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely a process, but
Yeah.
um, that one's definitely something that I liked. But I guess that one's something that I can look at as a game player and see like, oh, that's a really cool expansion. But it's probably
Mm,
not something that I would play just because it's
mm.
a little bit too much adding this whole other nation into the game. Um, yeah.
Not to mention too, like how does that actually work? Are they their own alliance? Like they own collect their own victory points?
Yeah, that's kind of yeah, pretty much how they work, where
Cool.
they are like a neutral entity that can
Yeah.
decide to kind of support the Axis allies. I think the only faction they hate is the Comintern. They won't
Right.
do
Join
anything
the.
with them, and
That's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I kind
yeah,
of like that idea. That's pretty clever. I mean, a
yeah.
person could do
That
something similar with South American nations, saying that perhaps. I mean, I know they wouldn't necessarily join, but theoretically boost up, say, Brazil quite a bit. Give them say double the income, and now they're their own like alliance down there that they have to kind of figure stuff out and somehow win the game, or maybe they win the game if the difference between the victorious players is like only a difference of two or something like that, right? Like the Comintern win with 13 points, but the Axis are second at 11, and so then South America would win or something like that, right? That'd be a really really interesting concept. Scandinavia would work
yeah,
really well. Yeah. Huh.
yeah. I definitely it adds a lot of complexity, but I
Mm-hmm.
really like having nations as their own entity. It's like
Mm-hmm.
with Turkey at war. It doesn't just become German. All of its
Mm-hmm.
money, all of its units. It's its own entity. It's makes the game longer. It adds another power, but I like it being here are Turkish
Yeah.
units
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
um, yeah, and
I thought they become Italian.
yeah.
I thought the
Oh,
Turks become Italian or played
they
by the Italian.
become yeah. They're played by the Italian player, but it's kind of like the Commonwealth. Their IPCs and units
Oh, I
are their
see.
own separate
I see.
thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah. And then speaking of Scandinavian countries, there was another expansion set that was from the same guy that made the Sweden Finland
Hmm.
one, and it was called I think it was the Nordic Countries at War. That one I
Okay.
really liked, and
Yeah.
I've played it in 3 games now, and
Oh.
basically it just adds so Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Denmark. It just kind of ups
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
involvement. So there's stuff like heavy water facilities in Norway,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
gives both nations bonuses to control
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Um, so I like that because there's still neutral entities. They still get conquered and everything, but it just adds a little bit. Like the Germans can invade Denmark and decide to make it a protectorate. So and it allows them to basically get a free SS, like when they go to war with Russia. It's like little things like that that are kind of cool. Yeah, and
That's really cool. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's neat. So I think we should start winding this down. So will you be joining the next spring offensive? You don't live too terribly far away from that.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that, like when I checked out the maps, but for one, that one I'm not sure when it is exactly.
June, I think. June or July.
June.
Yeah.
Yeah. That actually might be a possibility because it does line up with me not being in college. But
nice.
Yeah, it's definitely a consideration, but I am fairly busy.
Yeah. With school and such, yeah.
Yeah, but I've really, especially like, I think it was Panzer King put out a video about a month ago before what is this one, the winter offensive? I forget. Operation Skyhook.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that they had a free slot because I can't remember, was it General Hand Grenade couldn't attend or couldn't do the YouTube Wars, and I was like, darn, like if I had a place to set up my table or something like that, I would totally do a YouTube Wars. But I've really wanted, like, between YouTubers or some of the members on the Facebook page, I've really wanted to play with some other like kind of career like Axis and Allies hobbyists.
Right.
Yeah, my group of players, I have about 3 in my friend group that I've kind of decided that they are invested enough to actually play it, but they're more of let's play this game maybe once or twice a year.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a board game off the side.
Yeah. I see. So you do have local players to play with, right, for this game?
Yeah.
Because you say you play certain customizations and such, like, you know, the Nordic countries. You said you played 2 or 3 times. It's like, man, you got two or three games with people willing to play custom expansions. That's really cool. That is pretty special to have people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely one thing that I see a lot on like the Facebook page when it like comes to like players, is that I see like my friends and my group over, and even me, like I play a lot more in like I don't know, just like a more fun aspect of when we play. No one's really invested in like, you know, doing the best thing ever, to doing like the best possible strategy to win the game. It's like with Germany, actually. I came up with a strategy that I mentioned to my brother, who also plays, and he thought it would be a funny thing to do, which is basically build a couple transports, sail around and capture all of Germany's old colonies in Africa, like in Portugal and stuff. Before the war starts. It's like it'll probably be a detriment in the end, but it would just be a funny thing as the Allies are like, what, you can't do that? Yeah. So
the downside of having such a big game that takes multiple days to play is that if you tend to do this kind of things, people won't like that. They'll frown on you and say, like, you know, you just threw the whole game for everybody else. But I understand the appeal behind it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. And
but one thing though too, I was talking with somebody, and I was saying, like, sometimes the best move to make is not the most optimal move. I don't know if I said that the right way, but I used as an example Scotland. Like, say Scotland is held by the English with 1 militia or something like that. Sometimes simply by attacking it, even if you lose it immediately, sometimes that still has some benefit behind it, because now they're like, this guy is kind of unpredictable. He knew he was going to lose it the next turn, yet he still did it anyways. What else is he going to do just that doesn't make sense, right? It's like, it's in the form of chess. It's like giving up a unit right at the start of the game, because chess is all about, almost, not quite, and I might offend people, but a lot of it's about memorization of these moves that were done and these moves that counter those moves, and going on and on and on. So if you do something really dumb at the start of the game, I mean, not super duper dumb, but, you know, a little bit dumb, that makes you lose a single piece or something like that, you know, your tower or something, that changes the whole nature of the game, and it puts you in a less optimal move at the start, but it might actually help you win the game, because you might be playing with like traditionalist kind of players who are like, well, that doesn't make any sense, why would he do this? And it might mess them up for the rest of the game. So those moves too, like going around and capturing all of the old German old German colonies. I mean, I think that's a little bit too crazy,
Yeah,
but it still has some merit in the game.
yeah. I do remember one time something like that that actually worked out, like in terms
Yeah.
of crazy but smart, I guess,
Mm,
was it was 1939, and my brother, as Russia, he took the Russian Navy. He had built a transport and he
yeah.
sent it down. I think he captured the one IPC territory Portugal had in Africa, and then he
Yeah.
also captured Portugal,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
was able to kind of be like allies. You know,
Oh yeah. Okay.
don't do
Yeah.
anything about this. But it actually kind of helped them in the end, because when Germany aligned nationalist Spain, Russia had this contingent in Portugal that was able to kind of counter that. So
Right.
it
Right.
actually
Right.
worked
Right.
out in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure how it works now. Like, I don't know if Russia could declare war early. Maybe it can. I can't remember anymore. So, yeah, that's an interesting
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it,
That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
I think with Russia, it was, it's late, it's July 1939, they can
Right.
declare war on
Yeah. Yeah.
other nations. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Or
Yeah. That's
minors. Yeah.
that's pretty cool. I like
Yeah.
that. That's interesting. Okay, well, excellent.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed talking with you today. I think it was fun. And if you're interested in doing this again sometime, that'd be quite enjoyable.
Yeah. Definitely.
Cool. All right, man. Okay. Thanks a lot. I will talk to you later.
All right.